Hey y'all, I'm Nicole and I'm here this morning to do my very first ever YouTube video. I have a feeling that it's going to be pretty apparent that this is my first time to do this. It may be rough, I may lose my train of thought, but I decided that I'm going to try to use this video, even if it's terrible, just so that I can look back later and say, wow, I've really made some progress. I hope that happens. But anyway, today what we're going to be doing is refinishing this little table. I don't know if you can tell very much about it. This is a little table that was in my grandmother's house, and a couple of years ago we cleaned her house out and got it ready to be rented out, and sadly this little table has been sitting on my back porch ever since. But I asked my readers, I have a blog called Mouchka In The Making, and I asked my readers what they would like to see on YouTube, and the biggest response was a furniture refinish or maybe a trash to treasure. So I thought this is close enough, and so I decided to get this table and just see what we could do with it, mainly because it's small. Hopefully I can do it pretty quickly. And I also wanted to draw some spiritual connections to the process of refinishing, because I know that sounds strange, but that's just something that speaks to my heart every time I start a project, is how I can relate that to how God works in my heart. And so the first thing that I did when I was getting ready to redo the table was to clean it up really good. And that is what happens when the Lord saves us. When we accept Jesus as our Savior, He comes into our hearts and He cleans us up and gets rid of all the yucky junk. And that's what I did when I cleaned up the table. Well, when He saves us, that doesn't mean that we're where we need to be. You know, we're going to make mistakes. There's still a lot of rough spots that need to be sanded off. Sometimes He does that through the hard times that we go through. Sometimes we learn from painful experiences. Sometimes going through hard things gives us more compassion for somebody else that's in that same situation. I didn't think I was going to have to sand this table, because a lot of times you don't with chalk paint. Chalk paint covers over a lot. But I realized that this did have some little places that were peeling up, and that reminded me something about myself. You know, just when I think I've got it all together, I come across some more rough spots, and God really has to work on me to sand those off. I can remember not too long ago, it had just been a really bad day, and I had gotten really upset, and I acted, there's no other way to say it, I acted a fool. Just crazy, just yelling, screaming, saying really, really ugly things. And I hate to even admit that, but I'm just gonna be real with you. It happened. So as it happens, that night I was going to an event, a Christian event, with some people that I deeply respect. And after my little episode, my little mad fit, whatever, I asked the Lord to forgive me almost immediately. But I still had a little bit of a yucky feeling. I couldn't let it go, even though I know that when I ask Him to forgive me, He does. It's over. It's done with. But I was still feeling a little unworthy. So we get to our event, and wouldn't you know it, I was asked to say a few words. Well, I thought, Lord, I can't do this. I just act crazy. I can't speak. And He said, yes, you can. So I stopped to think about it, and I realized that, you know, it's for that yuckiness. It is for the times we mess up. It is for our ugliest moments and all the yucky stuff that's still in our hearts. That's the kind of things that Jesus had to die for in the first place. If it wasn't for sin, there would have been no need for Him to have had to go to the cross. And so that's kind of what I connected to that, and it was just kind of a reality check for me. When I think I have it together, I don't really. And I don't think any of us really do, because we're a work in progress. So enough about that till the next step. But I just want to show you my sander. I'm using a DeWalt, what do they call that? Rotary sander. And I actually broke this sander last week. And when my husband took it to Lowe's to get the new part for it, the guy said, tell her not to bear down so hard, use a tougher grit. And I think that's what God has to do with me sometimes. He has to use a tougher grit to get down to the nitty gritty with me. But I'm just going to hit these spots right quick. Just, sorry it's loud. There's not going to be a whole lot of sanding required on this little table, so I'll see you in a minute. Alright, see, that wasn't too bad, and I think I got it all. Now I'm just going to kind of brush off some of that dust that's left over and have just a little damp cloth here. I'm going to wipe it down, and it's hot out here, so that's going to dry pretty quickly, and I don't think we'll have to worry about it interfering with our paint sticking. So talking about the paint, I'm using a homemade chalk paint. Why do I use homemade chalk paint? I'll just be honest with you. I mainly use it because it's cheaper to make my own than to buy it in a store. So to make my chalk paint, I use just some regular, ordinary, cheap white paint, and I pour in some plaster of Paris. And the plaster of Paris just makes all the difference in the way that the chalk paint coats. So it's really what makes it chalk paint in the first place. And my recipe for that is I just take about 3 cups of white paint, or not white paint, whatever color of paint I'm using for that project. Take about 3 cups and then pour in a heaping tablespoon of plaster of Paris, and then about 4 tablespoons of just plain water, and just mix that up really good. And I think about the plaster of Paris, and when I pour that in, how that's like the way God pours blessings into our lives. Like, it's amazing how he goes out of his way to just do things that are big things and little things too, just to make life more pleasant for us. I mean, just think about the beautiful things that he's done, and it can be anything from just watching the sunset to a baby's laugh to just hugging somebody that you love. There's all kinds of beautiful blessings that he added to our lives that he surely did not have to do. So that was kind of the analogy I drew from the plaster of Paris. Let me set this to the side. Alright, so I was going to show you this rocker sitting behind me. I think maybe you can see that. Sometimes that is just midway through a project, but sometimes I've had to use stripper on it. I've used this citrus strip, which is a good thing to use to strip off all paint. Sometimes God has to strip away things that maybe we like and we don't even realize that they're bad for us. And so that's just one more little thing that I drew from this. But anyway, so the next step is going to be to put the paint on. And the painting is like when he just continues to cover us with his grace, because he just loves us so much. Now, when I mixed up this chalk paint, I like to do it in these little things that you can get at Lowe's and probably anywhere else, I don't know. But I got this little 1 quart container from Lowe's, and I just poured my white paint directly in there because I could measure it. It has measuring lines. And although sometimes I don't always measure, just eyeball it, kind of like I do when I'm cooking. But, and I'm maybe going to have some cooking videos on YouTube soon. But anyway, I just mix it up in that, and then that way, if I want to save it for later, it has a top. It's all good. And for the brushes, a lot of times I'll use a sponge brush to do chalk painting, but the handles tend to break on those, and so I really didn't want to fool with having to replace handles on a just keep changing out my brush. So anyway, I'm using these bristle brushes. The only thing about them is sometimes you might lose a bristle in the paint, but if you're going for that worn look, that's okay. Just peel that sucker right out of there after you're done, and it just gives it one more scratch. No big deal. I've got on my old clothes because this stuff is pretty thin, and I'm not a neat painter. Pretty messy, tend to sling it all around. So anyway, let's go ahead and get started with that. I'm going to turn it upside down and get up under here first because that's going to be easier. Can you still see? And I meant to give you this disclaimer right at the beginning. I'm not an expert at this. I have a friend who is so much better at refinishing furniture than I am. But it's something that I enjoy doing. And, you know, I think sometimes we if we're not the best at something, maybe we let that hold us back from trying it at all. And you don't have to be the best. You know, you can just do things that make you happy, things that bring you joy, and you know, that you think are fun, and it's okay to not be perfect at it, because that's just part of life. We're not going to be perfect at everything, but you know, there's a lot of things for us to enjoy. So I'm just kind of slapping that on. You can see, you know, I'm not really taking any pains with it, and I think a lot of times chalk paint does better if you do just slap it on. I think the final look of it is maybe prettier sometimes when you don't take a lot of time with it. And I don't know why that is. I guess just because you're going for that worn antique look, and that's what you get. And if y'all can tell, I am dripping like crazy, but that is okay because I'm just going to come in with the brush, keep brushing. I'm trying to do this quick so that this video doesn't last like all day. So my husband just walked up. Hey honey. He's probably thinking, you don't always call me honey. And I don't, but he can be sweet. So now he's leaving because I think he's afraid I might try to get him in the video. See you later. Again, I'm just, like I said, I'm just kind of slapping this on, and it's okay because the finished product, you're not going to be able to tell whether or not we took a lot of pains with this. Really, really thin stuff. And it really, you know, that if you can see in these legs, there are some places that I'm not even really getting covered real well because I really don't want them covered real well. You may, and that's fine on the piece that you're working on, but I just really want, I want it to look like something that came out of somebody's grandma's attic or something. So if it doesn't cover every little place like that right there, that's all right. That is okay. And it, you know, you can go back and touch up later if you want to. And I'm most likely going to do 2 coats on this before I kind of rough it back up with a sander. That's what I normally do, because even though I do think it looks good when it's just slapped on, I think it looks even better when it's just slapped on twice and you have 2 slapped on coats. So anyway, this is drying really quick. It's late July in Alabama, so it is, even though this is a cooler day than what we've been having, it's still pretty doggone hot. So just want to get right in there, and then gonna have to load my brush again. And after that, we're getting about to the point that we can flip it up and show you what it's gonna look like in the end. Sorry if the camera's not adjusted just right. I'm still getting the hang of this. I'm hoping that the outdoor lighting is gonna be good. Lighting just tends to be more hard to pin down when you do it inside. But just getting these last little spots. Trying to do it without touching it with my fingers, because when I do, it leaves little yucky spots. Okay, one more leg, and then we're just gonna flip it back up. And the good part about it is that the second coat will be even easier than this. And as you can see, this is about as easy as it gets when it comes to painting. There's no, you know, taking your time and making sure it's all well covered. You don't even have to do that with these. Because again, you want it weathered, and you can make it as weathered as you want or as finished looking as you want, but I'm just going for like a rough, just a farmhouse finish. That's what I call it. Farmhouse stuff's real popular now, and I guess that's the closest thing I can think of to what we're kind of going for here. Now this next part could be a little bit tricky because the paint is a little bit wet, but I'm going to try to go up under the edges and just raise the table and flip it. And if I mess it up, it's okay. I can still come back to it later. Now, another finish that would have looked really good for this little table, and I didn't even think about it till just now, but I may go back and do that later. I think it would be cute to just leave the top natural and then just cover it with a clear coat, or maybe even go back over it with some more stain or something. And so, you know, y'all, I'm really wishing I had just done that, and I may go back and sand it all back off later. But for right now, for the purposes of this video, I'm gonna go ahead and just cover this top with just a little bit of paint. Just doesn't take much at all. Just a little dabble-do with chalk paint. The paint that I'm using right now is actually some that I had already mixed up the other day for another project, and I had enough left for this. And you know, you don't have to just go with white. I have done furniture in several colors using chalk paint. I love to do the vintage teals and sometimes reds. I've never done yellow, but I've seen some really pretty pieces that are yellow, and maybe even a pale blue, just whatever you like. And again, with this, you can just kind of leave some scuffy spots. I don't know, is that a word? Scuffy? Probably not. But just leave some little spots where it's not covered real well, and that just gives it more of that vintage antique look. And if you get too much paint on there, if you get more than what you actually wanted, you can always go back and do a little sanding. And that's what I'm going to do as soon as this dries really good. And I'm coming to the end of this coat of paint, so probably what I'm going to do is just cut the camera off for a few minutes and let this dry really good, and then just see where we need to go from there. So I'm trying to get these drips first though. I hate drips. That's the worst thing. There's nothing that can mess up your piece worse than drips, because they just, no matter what you do, they just never look really good. So I'm just trying to make sure I got all those, and then I'm just gonna stop right here for a few minutes, and I'll be back soon. Thanks.